What's going on, YouTube? What's up, Raider Nation? I'm Bubba the Raider coming at you. It is, what is today? Today's Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025. We are less than 48 hours away from the draft, and I'm really excited. So it's an odd time. I haven't made a video in a while, a really long time, and I'm going to get into why that is. But before I do that, I have to throw a huge shout out to my boy Ian, one of my students. I promised him, I made him a bet that if his Rams beat my Raiders this year, that I would throw him a shout out in a video. Ian, congratulations. Yeah, this is your shout out. That was forever ago, and I was going to make a video way back when, but I decided not to. And here's why. Why I haven't made a video in like a year. This season pissed me off. Probably more than any season I can remember in a long time. Well, that might not even be true. I mean, I don't think anything's pissed me off as bad as Josh McDaniels did throughout that whole process. But this season was embarrassing. Really starting with that Carolina Panthers game, our first home game in Vegas this year, was probably the most embarrassing loss I remember as a Raider fan. And I think my will to be excited kind of died out pretty quick. Gardner Minshew played horrible. I was hoping he would play a lot better this year. He did not play well. I think we made a big mistake. I felt like we were going to make a big mistake starting him over Aiden. And we did, and it was a mistake. I was not someone that wanted Antonio Pierce to be fired. I was not thrilled with the job that was done, but I also afford a lot of grace in the idea that it takes time to learn and to figure out and all that stuff. But the biggest reason I didn't want Antonio Pierce fired is because I thought it would lead to ultimately what happened. And I think we kind of lucked out. And that was, okay, we fire Antonio Pierce. We have a shot at a guy like Ben Johnson, who everyone talked about, everyone wanted, everyone was excited, young first-time coach. And when you really think about it, we fired Antonio Pierce after, a year. We fired Josh McDaniels after roughly a year. We fired John Gruden, or he resigned. It's like in the last 3 years, we've gone through this process 3 times. What promising up-and-coming coach is going to want to risk his career, his future, his opportunities on a team that can't stick with a coach? I fight with a lot of fans, a lot of Raider fans, about this idea of consistency, specifically at the quarterback position, and how it affects the quarterback position, right? Like, I'm a huge Derek Carr defender, and I know that that's kind of taboo for a lot of us Raider fans, but I believe wholeheartedly that you can't have success on the field if you are constantly turning over coaches. Look at the most successful teams in NFL history. I mean, look at the Steelers. The Steelers are constantly, I mean, maybe not this year, but a very good football team with until the Patriots caught up, more Super Bowls than anyone. They've had 3 head coaches since the 60s. Like, that consistency is important. And I don't think that we're going to be a team that's going to hit on a young, promising head coach or even get one to come to us until we can show that we can build something and be committed to a coaching staff. So I wasn't surprised he didn't pick us. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't get all caught up and all excited in that process, but I wasn't surprised at the end of the day that he's going to go somewhere else where they have a quarterback, a chance to get a young quarterback, and maybe an owner that's going to be willing to give a couple years. We need that consistency. We need to be able to prove that commitment. So that's where I think Pete Carroll enters. I'm pretty excited for Pete Carroll. I wasn't initially, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like this guy has been super successful. specifically with USC, and then with the Seahawks for I don't know, a better part of what, like 13 years or something like that. Been to multiple Super Bowls, championships, those things. Like, he's built that team. He is, it's no secret, he is very old. When he coaches his first game with the Raiders, he will be the oldest coach to ever coach a game in NFL history. That is, that's not like something to be super excited about. I mean, he's probably only gonna have a couple years where he's wanting to be our coach. So I think he can help us start to build those building blocks to become a more prime destination. Maybe this is to set up an opportunity for someone like a Chip Kelly or Patrick Graham to take over once he decides to step down. I don't know that both will be there that long, depending on how long he decides to coach. I'll also say the Oregon Ducks fan in me was slightly really, really excited about Chip Kelly coming to the Raiders. And I was really excited that we were able to maintain Patrick Graham and keep him. So bringing in Geno, building the staff, I really liked the way that Pete Carroll went about building his staff, not just leaning on people that he's worked with in the past, but maintaining some people that needed to be maintained in the building. That helped us bring him back Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz for a year, and then bring in some fresh blood that perhaps can help us create something. Chip Kelly coming in to help us create an offense. And then bringing in Geno Smith. This is not a move that, again, I was like jumping for joy with. But I think Geno Smith is a pretty solid quarterback who can win football games. And that's what we need. So with that said, I feel like that kind of adjusts how we're going to go about the draft, maybe. But I guess it just depends on how the boards fall. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So once the staff was in place, we started moving forward. We got our GM in John Spytek, and free agency started. And this was a free agency I was really excited to kind of watch and see what was going to happen. And I was pretty disappointed. I think we all were. I think there was a lot of us that were kind of freaking out. I'm not freaking out about it, but I will say, like, we lost starters, right? We lost Divine Diablo. We lost Trayvon Merrick, Nate Hobbs, Robert Spillane, Marcus Epps. We cut Jack Jones. We lost Kayla Von Chason, who really, I felt, stepped in this year and played just really, really solidly, really well, among others. But that's 7 key contributors and starters on our defense this last year. Like 7 out of 11. That's a lot. Basically, aside from Jacorian Bennett, like our entire starting secondary, and I know Isaiah Palomau played a ton because Marcus Epps got hurt, but like, that's a lot. And when I look at who we brought in, I'm excited about Jeremy Chin. I like Jeremy Chin. I think Landon Roberts is a good, solid pickup. And I think that those two are solid starters that can come in right away. So that, we lost 7 starters on defense, roughly, if you count Chason. And we added 2. And you can start to go into like where there's other potential. I'm not going to front and say that, back in, 2019, I wasn't pissed when we drafted Cleveland Ferrell with the 4th pick and passed on Devin White. I thought Devin White was the pick for sure, needed to be the guy. Ferrell, if we're honest, he didn't live up to that 4th overall pick at all. But he's actually had a pretty solid career. Again, not first round worthy, not top 5 worthy, but he's been around and been a solid contributor for Washington, for us, for San Francisco. Devin White looked incredible his first year or two, but he fell off quickly, man. He something happened. And he really just didn't look good. And so we can sit here and be like, oh man, we're going to get the Devin White of that first 2 years. And maybe we will. Like, that's the goal, right? But, it's just as likely or more likely that we get Devin White of the last 5 years that has not been good, that was bouncing around from Philly to Houston and not starting, not playing snaps. So we'll see what we get there, but like, I'm not going to bank on him being a stud. And the same thing can be said about guys like Eric Stokes and Lonnie Johnson. Like, those are guys who are going to play and hopefully play really, really well. But you can't bet the farm that they're going to be the difference maker in the season. And if you have a chance to take a really solid player at those positions in the draft, you have to do it, right? We also brought in some offensive help, but to me, it was all very, very minimal offensive help, which was a little disappointing too. We brought in Alex Kappa, who is a guy with a lot of starts in this league, but I mean, if you look at PFF and take that for what it is, he was, I think, the worst graded offensive lineman in the last 2 years in the NFL. To me, he's a depth piece. He's not a starter, and I don't think we're paying him crazy money. Maybe he starts. I don't know, but I feel like at guard, like, I don't know. I'm not excited about Alex Kappa. We brought in Raheem Mostert, which, cool. Like, he was pretty good for a while. He wasn't good this year. He's old, but I feel like he's someone who can contribute to our running game. And then actually, I think maybe aside from the Jeremy Chin pick, my favorite pickup was Ian Thomas, the tight end from the Panthers. I really was stressing about needing another tight end this year, which is crazy to say because we've drafted, Michael Mayer in the second round, and then Brock Bowers, the best tight end last year, in the first. I feel like every team needs three tight ends that could come out when you have 3 tight end sets, which a lot of teams run, and especially with us having Brock Bowers, who can be moved all over the field. If you want to have 2 tight ends and Brock out wide or, in the backfield or something like that, another guy is important. Ian Thomas is someone who showed a lot of promise coming out of college a couple years back, being in Carolina, that I think, we had Harrison Bryant there last year, and he really filled in nicely, especially with Michael Mayer being out for as long as he was. And, we got to replace that. And so I think that helps us fill a need and maybe not have to address that in the draft. So that's the free agency update. I wasn't thrilled with it. I really hope we sign Hunter Renfrow, if nothing more than the fact that I love him. He's a fan favorite. He's my wife's favorite football player, and I feel like she hasn't been as excited watching the Raiders since he was cut. So looking at our roster and kind of identifying what our biggest needs are, and not necessarily in this order, but looking at the state of our roster, I really think that what we have to address before our next game, before the preseason starts, whether that's in the draft, bringing in free agents, making a trade, combination of those 3 things, we need a wide receiver. Okay, when I look at our wide receiver depth chart, I really, really like Jakobi Meyers. I think he is solid. A lot of people don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I think he could be. Regardless, he's there. He's on our team. He's starting. That's great. We need to give him an extension right away. I really like Trey Tucker too. I thought he took a big step last year. He had LASIK surgery. I felt like he started catching everything. But then you start looking at things like after Trey Tucker, it's Ramel Keaton and Tyleek McAllister and guys who are not starting caliber wide receivers. I think we need 1, 2 wide receivers that we need to bring in. I don't know that that's something we need to invest a first round pick in, especially with the number 6 pick. And it's also something that Brock Bowers can help with. But I definitely think we need specifically a big-bodied X receiver, someone who, to me, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", big perimeter target, help out in the red zone. We need a running back. We need 2 running backs in my mind. I mean, Sincere McCormick looked pretty good. Dylan Labe had all that hype and that promise, but he got like 2 carries this year and fumbled or whatever. Like, he didn't look great. Raheem Mostert's really old and has had health injury issues. Zamir White, I don't know if I just mentioned Zamir White, but he did not look good last year. So maybe there's a guy here that can hit, but I wouldn't be upset. This is the deepest running back class I've ever seen in the draft. And I wouldn't be upset if we took full advantage of that. We need corners. This is the position I'm really curious to watch, because Pete Carroll has a history of hitting on corners in those mid to late rounds. Guys like, Richard Sherman, guys, really big body guys like Tyreek Woolen, right? Kobe Bryant. So I'm interested to see first what he thinks of DeCamerion Richardson, our rookie we drafted last year, who got kind of fed to the wolves last year with injuries and other things happening. He played a lot and he got picked on quite a bit, and there were times where he looked awful. But I remember the year before that, Jacorian Bennett going through those same things, looking horrible. And I remember hearing that he was really down on himself, but he bounced back. And I would argue that Jacorian Bennett when healthy, was our best defensive back last year. And I'm interested to see the role that gets carved out for DeCamerion Richardson, because he's one of those guys. He's 6'4", and he ran a 4.2 40 or whatever it was. So 4.2 something, 4.3 something, I don't know. But feels like a Pete Carroll guy. But I think we need more corners. And defensive tackles. I would love to see us add specifically a big-bodied one technique D-tackle, someone who can help stuff the run, eat up some space, free up some room for our linebackers, and really kind of help out on the D-line. So those are musts to me. Those are places we have to address. I wouldn't mind taking a shot on a rookie quarterback to help develop. I still really do like Aiden O'Connell and would like to see him kind of learn and get a chance. I think we need to find a defensive end of the future. Really curious to see what we do with Tyree Wilson. To me, Tyree Wilson's more of an interior guy. We re-signed Malcolm Kuntz, but we re-signed Malcolm Kuntz for 1 year. And I don't think, if we really believed in him or he really was interested in staying long-term, I think we would have found a longer-term contract for him. I think he's going to use this as a year to come out and show what he can do and leverage it for a big contract next year, probably not from us. O-line help. This is something that we're going to talk about the draft, but I've really been thinking about it a lot, where I'm like, our O-line, I think, is very talented and has a ton of potential, but I also think is something that we can upgrade, especially when you look at like Colton Miller. He didn't play great last year, in my mind. I watched him, and he didn't have an offseason. He had an injury. All those things are true, but he didn't play great last year. You had some rookies that came in and played, really well. Guys like DJ Glaze and Jackson Powers Johnson, which, again, as a Ducks fan, I feel like we never draft Ducks, and so I love Jackson Powers Johnson. He might be my favorite player. I really like the idea of drafting Armand Membao and putting him at right tackle and then kicking DJ Glaze into guard. But I was kind of curious about, because I'm not excited about Kappa. In my mind, I'm like, oh, he's the starter. But when you look at PFF again, and you start looking at Jordan Meredith's grade from last year. He actually had a really solid year. Jordan Meredith played some pretty good football, and I'm not excited. Like, he's not someone that makes me go like, yeah, we got the guy. But it kind of makes it seem to me like if we're drafting for need, which John Spytek came out and said, we're going to do a combination of best player available and need. I think that kind of bumps the O-line down just a touch. Again, if we have a chance to take Minbow, I think we need to do that depending on who's on the board. And I'll be thrilled about this. But O-line help for sure, and I think we need to address the linebacker position. Landon Roberts, like I said, he is old. And you don't know what we have in Devin White. We don't know what we have in Tommy Eichenberg. I'm excited about him. We've got a couple other guys who have been bouncing around. Amari Burney and what's that other guy's name from last year? Gaynor. Amari Gaynor. And so, yeah, I like them. And then, maybe safety. We've drafted a couple safeties over the last couple years that I think have a lot of potential. Guys like Chris Smith and Trey Taylor, award winners. Isaiah Palomau played really well last year. I think he'll be our starter. But, yeah, it's still a question mark. None of those guys are proven. Jeremy Chinn's been really good in the league. I almost wonder if Jeremy Chinn should be a linebacker. He's one of those guys. So jumping in now, the last thing I want to talk about today is like my thoughts on the draft. My favorite time of the year. And this draft has got me perplexed. I really just don't know what to expect. And I don't really know what I want us to do. Everyone's talking about Ashton Jeanty, and I think Ashton Jeanty's incredible. But I pulled up John Spytek and Pete Carroll's draft history. I just kind of broke it down back to 2017. And when I look at what they did between the two of them and their two organizations, only one running back has been drafted between the two of them in the first round, and that was Rashard Penny back to Seattle in 2018. The trend doesn't lean towards taking a shot on a running back there, especially when this running back class is so deep. And then if I continue to look even further down, Carroll took two running backs in the second round with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And John Spytek took Ronald Jones in the second round. So it's like there's a couple that they've picked in the second round, but it feels like a lot of the running backs they picked were third, fourth, fifth round guys. Now, some of the trends that I really liked that I saw was like I went through and I picked who I thought was a hit. And they both, specifically Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, hit on quite a few guys in those middle rounds where I think it's like crucial that you hit on. A little concerning is the lack of hits in the first round, specifically for Pete Carroll from 2017 to 2021, right? I feel like his last 2 years, he nailed 3 of the picks in Charles Cross, Devin Witherspoon, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like, those were really good picks. But when you look at the history of both the Buccaneers and the Seahawks, it kind of feels like defense or the trenches is going to be kind of the history of what they've done. Okay, so the Seahawks didn't have a pick in the first round in 2017. They went running back, then defensive end, then corner, then offensive tackle, then corner receiver together. With 2021, they didn't have a pick. When you look at the Bucs, they went tight end, trenches, D tackle, trenches, linebacker, defense, offensive tackle, trenches, D end, trenches, didn't have a pick, D tackle, trenches, center, trenches. You see what I'm saying? It feels like they're going to be taking maybe an offensive or defensive lineman, maybe a corner. So I mean, we'll see, but it's really promising to see how they hit on guys in the second, in the third, in the fourth. I mean, even finding like really solid contributors. Like in 2017, the Seahawks had 3 7th-round picks, and they took David Moore, who was a pretty solid contributor as a wide receiver, and Chris Carson, running back, who was a starter for them for a really long time. And like, that's really cool to see the success that they can have. So I just don't know what to expect. But to me, it's starting to feel less and less like it's going to be Ashton Jeanty. That doesn't mean that I don't think that it will be, or that I don't think it should be. I think if he's the best player on the board, you take him. And I would love to see us bring in a guy like that. But I think we have so many holes to fill that my initial hope is that we can find someone to trade back with and pick up a couple more picks. Because if we can pick up 1 or 2 more top 100 picks, I think we'll be in a really a much better place. We just have so many holes in my mind that we have to fill. And another interesting thing to see is, like, this talk of quarterback. A lot of talk right now going around about Jalen Milroe, who I actually really like. I like the potential there. I don't know if I think he's going to be good. He's raw. But I think that with some coaching and some learning, and sitting behind a guy like Geno would be great for him. However, I don't foresee Pete Carroll going, hey, my time is, he's got to be realistic. His time is limited. He wants to win. He wants to win now. This can't be a complete rebuild. It's got to be an accelerated rebuild, because he's only got a limited time. So I don't foresee him wanting to throw a pick at a quarterback that the goal is to let sit and learn for 2, 3, 4 years, when he might be retired at that. He'll be pushing 80. I just don't see him making that choice. So it'll be interesting to see, because I don't know, like, even looking through these drafts, I don't know what role Pete Carroll played in those decisions, whether he was the guy that was like, yes, 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 or John Schneider, their GM at Seattle, was the guy that was like, yeah, this is who we're taking. And the same with John Spytek. He was an assistant GM and a scout, and those kind of things. I don't know how much say he had, if these were the guys that he was pounding the table for, or if he was, maybe like really pounding the table and planting the flag for other guys that maybe worked out, didn't work out. But I'm pretty excited about what I see here. I just really don't know what to expect, but I'm tending to lean towards, I don't know. I'm going to make a mock draft tomorrow, and kind of go through my thoughts a little bit more in depth. Some of the guys I've been fortunate enough to like check out and see what they're capable of. Some guys I'm really excited about. But I'm kind of thinking we're going to go towards building in the trenches a little bit. If Mason Graham is sitting there, I think that might be a way we go. Part of me is really thinking Jalen Walker might be kind of that surprise pick, which at this point has been talked about enough that it wouldn't really be a surprise. I don't know. Maybe sometimes the best answer is the most obvious one, and maybe that is Ashton Jeanty, though. So anyway, let me know your thoughts, Raider Nation. If you stuck with, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Leave a like if you like this video, dislike if you disliked it, leave a comment, and as always, just win, baby.